Was MOUSETRAP a video game? Or is that a song about the board game? I don't know.
Well, it's an album of songs based on video games, but we'll save that for the episode.
I'm assuming.
Do you knew that, though? You knew it was the concept album, that these are games that are in the arcade, yes. And now these are songs about those games.
Yes, that I knew, but
so with that in mind,
MOUSETRAP, I recognized the names of the games except for MOUSETRAP. I don't recall a video game called MOUSETRAP.
But did its inclusion on the video game-based novelty album as a title prompt you to consider and maybe type in MOUSETRAP video game into your browser?
Oh my God, I remember MOUSETRAP. Now I do.
Really?
Because I looked it up. And I'm looking at the screen and the console.
That's good. Well, I'm glad that you did that. And I'm sorry there were no resources prior to us talking now that could have prompted you to do that. What did you use? Did you use your computer to do that? Or your telephone?
I have an Encyclopedia Britannica collection. And so I was looking through that in the M's.
Oh, all right. So that's why it took so long.
It took a while.
All right. Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Pop, the show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. My name is Tim Blevins.
And I am Bob Canning. And Tim, just before we started recording, I had decided that I was going to ask you if you felt Pac-Man was a murderer.
That's true. We had a big meeting. The entire production staff came in for a big meeting. Because our numbers were down. And we found that people on podcasts, they like murder podcasts.
They do.
They like Serial and things like the Mute podcast Serial. And so we discussed, and one of the pitches, it was your pitch, so I think you're probably getting a bonus this quarter.
I think so.
You pitched that you were going to ask me in the episode if I thought Pac-Man was a murderer. That's right? That's what you just said. Now I'm saying it.
I was going to ask you that, but then as we were preparing to open the show, I thought about the fact that, he's killing ghosts, so they're already dead. So really, it's kind of a moot question, I think. And now I feel bad about proposing it.
Well, I wouldn't feel bad. I think you're struggling with the logistics of the world that we're working in, the world of Pac-Man.
Yeah.
By murdering ghosts, he bites the ghosts.
Yeah,
chomps them. He takes their clothes, but they have eyes that survive. He does chomp them. Sorry, I didn't mean to step right over that. They survive. They go back to their box. They get a new ghost outfit. Yeah, and they come back out. The only mortality in the game is Pac-Man.
Right.
So I don't.
But he reincarnates
3 times, but then he's done.
Yeah.
No, I don't look at him as a murderer.
So the ghosts are the killers. Those ghost face killers.
They're ghost face killers. They're the antagonistic ghost face killers of the game. I'll tell you this. We never talk about video games on the show. Couldn't tell you why.
Yeah. I mean, it comes very naturally to us, as you can see.
Yeah. We don't talk about video games. We also, you know what else we don't talk about? Novelty records.
Yeah, I think we'll discover there's a reason for that.
Really? Did you, novelty records and video games, did you play either one as a kid? Were you into either video games or novelty records as a child?
So you asked 2 questions there. You phrased it 2 ways. Did I play and was I into? I did play video games. I don't think I was into video games.
Did you have a system?
I did not have a system until I was in high school, I think. It was either 8th grade or 9th grade. So it was
Mine was 8th grade, yeah.
Yeah. And the system I got, if I'm, hate to go this quickly to the system I got, but it was TurboGrafx 16.
Oh, so you had it. They were in business for you.
I did when I was older, but I never had the Atari, which I think is what we're going to talk about mostly here.
Well, these are arcade games, though.
Yeah, these particular ones that we're going to chat about, but I guess they were also at home games.
Atari, I guess that's the thing. That's where I would have played these games, but I do consider them arcade games. Do you remember going to arcades? Was that an experience you enjoyed?
We didn't have like an arcade place. We had a pizza place that had an arcade room.
Okay,
And so-
that's similar. That might
Yeah,
be
so we
in a
would
smaller
go
town.
there, but my town didn't have just an arcade.
No. My concept of the arcade and the games in the arcade really came from two sources that I can think of. They came from friends. You had mentioned game systems. I had a friend who had an Atari, so I was able to play like Pac-Man, Asteroids, and things like that on it. So that was an education on games. But another place, another source, another area where I think I learned what certain video games were, was from a 1982 record release entitled Pac-Man Fever. A record called Pac-Man Fever.
Did you own the record? Did you buy this record?
I had a cassette. I got it out of the library. Our library was very progressive and had the Pac-Man Fever record.
Nice.
And the soundtrack to Amadeus before Amadeus came out.
Wow.
But they had the record, and the cover was a picture of the Pac-Man screen. I brought it home, and on a little 60-minute Memorex tape, I copied most of the album on one side and probably a song or two on the second side. So I had a cassette copy of it, didn't have the liner notes, didn't have the slipcase, didn't really have much of a knowledge of the fact that it is two guys that do all of these songs. It's a single band that performed.
Is it a band or is it just these two guys?
A duo. Is that a duo?
I guess. Yeah.
Buckner and Garcia is the name.
Yeah.
Consisting of Jerry Buckner and Gary Garcia.
So Gary Garcia is not what you expected?
Well, there's a Jerry Garcia.
Right. But there's a Jerry. You're saying Buckner's name is Jerry.
Yes, Jerry Buckner. I
Okay.
guess you know him.
Here's what I want to know. Why go with Buckner and Garcia when you can easily go with Jerry and Gary?
Because they weren't as forward thinking as you.
Guess
Here in the
not.
21st century. I don't know. Maybe they got wedged into Buckner and Garcia. Maybe they thought the name recognition of Garcia would push them past the novelty aspect of 70s records. I don't know. But this particular album, came out in January 1982. And yeah, I was a pretty big fan of it, probably the year after it came out, so 83 or 84. Did you know this album growing up? Did you know Pac-Man
I did not.
Fever?
I knew of the song Pac-Man Fever, but I don't
the
think...
title track.
Yeah, I knew that such a song existed. I don't know if I knew it then, but I eventually, at some point in my life, became aware of it. But no, I didn't hear this song then, and I didn't hear this album then.
Had you heard the album before today, before we
No.
decided to do it? No. So
Not the album. I had heard the song eventually over time, but not the album. None of the other songs. None of the other 7 tracks.
There are 7 to 8 tracks on this album. So why don't we get into talking about it? Because listeners, today, I don't know if it was clear.
It's never clear, Tim. We never make it clear enough at the beginning.
Okay, well, just to sum it up, we're going to be discussing a record by 80s super duo Buckner, and not Jerry, but Gary Garcia.
Jerry and Gary.
Jerry, Gary Garcia has since passed on. He's no longer making music, but Jerry Buckner did do music for Wreck-It Ralph, and I think continues to record. They actually re-recorded this album at one point. We're going to discuss the version that I sent you to listen to is the original.
Yeah, I fell into that trap online. I listened to the re-recorded version a little bit and realized that it wasn't the correct version. And honestly, the original is far better. Having
Far
been able
better?
to comparative to the 2 items that I'm talking about, yes, it sounded better. Especially there's one particular song. The second song that I heard the re-recorded version first, and then when I corrected myself and went back to the proper album, I was like, oh, well, actually, I kind of like this song, where I didn't like it at all in the re-recorded version.
What a difference having the proper rights to video game sounds can make.
Yeah.
Well, then let's start off with the first track, like we've just said, Pac-Man Fever.
Yeah.
It's based on the game Pac-Man, which I think originally was released in the States in 1980. And we were just talking about it. I mean, Pac-Man is sort of one of the more iconic video games, right? Like, I think in a way it's sort of the beacon representation of video games from the 80s.
I would think so. I think maybe some people think of Pong, but that was even before the 80s.
Do you think of Pong? Like, do you think of Pong as an arcade thing?
No, not arcades. I don't think of Pong as arcades. I do think of it as like the birth of video games, and I'm not a video game historian, so I'm not exactly sure if that's the first video game, but
You're always touting your non-qualities on this show.
Because I've got none. I have no expertise on anything.
It sounds like you have a lot of non-qualities.
Yeah.
I'm no topic of today expert, but here's my opinion. You know about video games. You lived in the 80s. And maybe it wasn't for you, but Pac-Man is kind of like, if someone says video games of the 80s, the iconic image of that almost whole circle, the yellow wokka-walking eating pellets and murdering ghosts. Pac-Man is what I think of, which is why it's kind of nice when the song, this whole album by default, begins with a very familiar sound effect. It begins with the start of the game.
Yeah. It eased me into listening to this music because it's like if it had started with just a guitar melody, I don't know that I would have been even interested in continuing. But because it's like it hits you right away with Pac-Man, you're brought right back to the game. You suddenly, get your trigger fingers ready. And it was pretty good. Wise decision.
To open the album Pac-Man Fever with the track called Pac-Man Fever.
But to open that track with the sound effects from Pac-Man.
So it has the feel of the video game. What do you think of this as like a song once it became a song and not just, or does it become something outside of just, now I'm thinking about Pac-Man?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, it becomes a song about Pac-Man, so you're still thinking about Pac-Man.
Oh, is it about Pac-Man?
Yeah. I think you don't think it's about Pac-Man? Pac-Man Fever? I guess it's about the fever.
I think it's something about the fever. I think this is a song about addiction.
Sure.
I think, spending all you've got on addiction.
But
it says don't have a lot of money.
But to Pac-Man. It's not.
Well, because it's a metaphor. People put metaphors into songs.
So you think in a drama about drug abuse, they could use Pac-Man Fever?
Well, possibly, because I don't, if it was a song about Pac-Man, specifically solely about Pac-Man, I think it'd be written by people who have a grasp on the game of Pac-Man. And as it stands, I feel like there's some inconsistencies, some lyrical inconsistencies that make me think that maybe they don't actually know the game they're writing about.
I caught that on some other songs. I don't know if I caught it on Pac-Man. Do you have an example?
Well, there's no ghost named Speedy. I think there's a line that says, I've got Speedy on my tail. I think they call another ghost Punky. And then it gets kind of sketchy and the song feels salacious because, I don't think they understand what's going on. They have a whole line about going to eat the cherries up and take them all for a ride. Virgins? I don't know. The cherries don't empower you in the game. You don't get faster or get any skills. It's just to give you more points.
Right.
There's a whole thing about, once around the back door, really cooking out, eating everything in sight.
Here's the thing, Tim, this has happened a few times on our discussions where I have come into this as this little innocent young mind, remembering my childhood with rose-petaled sunglasses or rose-colored sunglasses, and here you open me up to all these dark, twisted scenarios and second meanings to things that I just never realized before.
Well, they're interpretations. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed, I think it's very clear and distinctly accurate with the song Pac-Man Fever, but sometimes it's probably more up in the air. I don't know. That's the thing. And it's a novelty album. It's a concept of a novelty album, and it's not a bad song, but maybe, and we're starting off with this, but maybe because the question I had while listening to Pac-Man Fever was, good song, but do you build a full album out of it?
Oh, no, you don't.
Well, you don't.
No, they did.
I have a listing that says they did.
They did, but, they shouldn't have.
That's why I'm trying to think there must be more to each of these songs. There would have to be more to each of these songs.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to them all again Or maybe you have enough notes, and I mean, I have a few comments. Maybe we can figure this out as we go.
Well, I feel like that's the gist of the show that we're recording. That would be the direction.
Is that how we do this?
We would be doing this.
Okay.
It's just you have Jerry and Gary writing a full album. These are adult men. I'm not saying they weren't into video games. In fact, I've seen them at least doing the spiel when they perform live, saying they're into games. But for a song to already have faulty logic and inconsistencies to what the game is, I don't want to accuse Buckner, Jerry Buckner, and Jerry Garcia, of sort of cashing in, sort of selling out, of sort of just taking a trend and trying to make some quick money off it, because I do think this is a well-crafted song, and it has the ability to be about something else. And I do think Pac-Man Fever, yeah, it's right there. I'm burning up here. I've got it. It's either an illness, it's either like Pac-Man clap, or it's this. It's like a drive to kind of get that, sort of underground, hide it from my parents. I got to go out with this pocket full of quarters to get it because I don't want to raise any suspicion.
Yeah. Well, but is it more than that? That can still be about the video game.
It can.
But you're saying it's more.
Well, I'm just saying for it to be relevant to me now, let's digging into it. Like, as an example, to move to the next track, Froggy's Lament.
Yeah.
Based on a game called Frogger, 1981. I can't think that this is solely a song based on what, granted, was considered to be one of the most difficult arcade games of its time. They wrote a song that is supposed to be based on Frogger. They could have been called Frogger's Lament, but it's called something else. It's called Froggy's Lament. Well, I think sort of a danceable track.
I assumed to some extent there were some things they couldn't use. I was surprised that they got the Pac-Man name and the Pac-Man sound effect, to be perfectly honest.
Frogger wasn't a bigger star than Pac-Man, and they got the sound effects right there. They're describing in detail this game. Like, it's got to be about something else, though. It can't just be about a fucking video game.
But see, that's not what I heard. The thing that annoyed me about these songs is that what I was hearing was that they were just about the video games, to the point where they were simply describing things that they do in the game. Now I jump from this log and I missed the log and now I'm dead. I mean, that's not the line exactly.
Yeah, that's paraphrasing a line where they were paraphrasing the game. I think you're thinking of snakes, insects, otters, and things.
Yeah, it's just, and they did that in all of them, Centipede song and the Donkey Kong song. And those were the games that I actually was familiar with.
Were you not familiar with Frogger? Is this not a game?
No, I was familiar with Frogger, and so I was hearing just them describing the song, or describing the game, and to a point, especially feeling like I needed to listen to it more than once.
Oh, wow. You listened to this more than once?
I felt like I should. We were going to be talking about it.
Oh, not prior to us deciding to do it.
No, after that.
Yeah. Well, sit with Froggy's Lament for a minute. Think about it. Like, what are you getting from a song that just says, and in the game, a car comes in and I jump on a log? What else might be in that? What do you think? If you dig deep right now, it's the night before school, and you who are supposed to do your big video game album track report on Froggy's Lament, and you've got to cough something into your vocal recorder so that Siri or whatever that program is that translates stuff into text can do it. What meeting? What fake your way through school so you can somehow get a grade to validate the fact that you're going to a creative college with a degree? What do you pull out of this to make Froggy's Lament worth listening to?
I guess I would say it's about not being able to stop. And if you do stop, then you've failed. And so you've got to keep moving, you've got to keep going, you got to keep going forward.
That's good.
I think the line in there is can't stop until you get to the top, or keep on hopping until you get to the top.
I think both of those are versions of lyrics.
I know you can never stop is in there.
Yeah.
And so I guess you could take that, but
right?
If you wanted to go
advancing
deeper,
at a fucking job in the 80s.
Yeah.
While high on cocaine. But no, I think what you said is perfect. There's this idea of having to push forward and keep going because honestly, he's got everything in the world coming at him. He's got snakes and insects and otters and things.
Yeah.
Right there in the lyrics. Not lyrics that, I don't know if that's actually someone who saw the game. Like, there's these things in it. That's not good lyric writing. But no, because I will tell you, I'm not a fan of the character voice in this song.
It's a frog voice.
Kermit's voice doesn't sound like that.
Kermit's
the frog on the cartoon called Frogger didn't sound like that.
No, that was their interpretation.
Okay. But to keep it from just being a dumbass song with a funny voice, I think what you said is accurate. Plus, it's got a great keyboard synthesizer in it. I like that it sounds very 80s. Why are we
keeping it from being a dumbass song? It might just be a dumbass song.
But then why do two musicians, I believe Jerry Garcia's friend Gary Garcia and another musician, spend time in a studio composing and recording songs? And why does an entire society buy the album enough to make Pac-Man Fever the song a hit and for it to live on? If all it is simple novelty, doesn't that kind of degrade the whole concept of all the art that's going into it? I think this thing is a testament to not just arcades, but a period of life there in 1982. Most of these games premiered in 1981, I think. Like if we move on to the next track, Ode to a Centipede. Centipede was a 1981 game. Did you ever play? You said you knew Centipede. You knew
I knew the game. I think I played it once, maybe twice, and was just overcome by it, overwhelmed by it, and it just terrified me. I never played it again, but I would watch it.
This song to me almost derails the idea of a concept because I don't know. It could be Flashdance. I think it's got the start to it. It could be in Flashdance, but it's got a weird narrator to it. There's these talking parts where this narrator's telling the centipede, "You can't run. I'm going to get you."
Yes.
He sounds kind of like Emo Phillips a little bit.
Oh my God, it's terrifying. It's
terrifying.
I was terrified by it. It's terrifying because it's not terrifying. It is like the song is about getting the centipede and destroying him, essentially, and winning the game. And so you would think the tone would be, "I'm going to get you. Here I come." But
that is the tone.
No, the voice in the song is, "I'm coming to get you. I see you.
Sounds like S. Claus from the Star Wars Christmas album.
Here I come, centipede.
Yeah.
I'm right behind you." It's creepy as hell.
The narrator's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Like Centipede is the villain of the game normally, but in this, it sounds sad.
Yeah. It's like you start rooting for the centipede after you hear this song.
Right? And I'll be honest, 5.5 minutes is long for any 80s song, and it's very long for
Is that how long it was? Good.
It's pretty long. Very long for a song about centipede.
Tim, it's long because centipedes are long.
There you go, right? That's intelligent writing.
Yeah.
That's using something. That's taking a game. That's taking a video game that you had played once or twice, and a lot of the consumers, as we'll call them, who bought this album would have played. Centipede was a pretty big hit. Got into a lot of ports like Atari and stuff. It's pointing out the fact that shooting the centipede up in the game, rolling your roller controller and blindly firing to tear it apart, you are the villain.
Yeah.
We are the villain in these games. This poor centipede is just moving around and we're taunting it. We're taunting it because we have the coins to keep it going. We have multiple lives where the centipede only has one before another one comes down. We can walk away, go on with our life, and then come back and rain terror down upon this poor insect, right? Centipedes are insects. You are the narrator. It's an ode. You're singing it. Odes are supposed to be romantic. Ode to a centipede, except that you're a prick.
Right.
You're a J. Prufrock prick, or whatever that's called.
In an ode, you are honoring the subject, and he is not doing that.
He is not. Because we don't. I think when we pour our quarters into these video games, slamming the buttons, there was reason to question what is the purpose of that. And I feel like Ode to a Centipede kind of gets in there a little. But I don't know. Like, are you not a fan of the song?
Not a fan of the song.
It gives you a lot of time to change your mind. 5 minutes and a half.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like each of the songs musically are okay. They're fine. You know, they all have like a groove to them. I can't complain about the instrumental, the keyboards, the synths.
Isn't that part of music? The instrumentals?
Yes,
it's great.
But so are the lyrics. The lyrics are a huge part of music, and the lyrics here and the topics is probably what really derails the the album for me. I'm not a huge fan of novelty songs and albums anyway. I'll take a novelty song on its own, but I certainly don't think you need an album.
The fourth track is called Do the Donkey Kong. Did you know the game Donkey Kong as a kid? Was that something you knew?
I thought I knew it. But as I'm listening to these lyrics, I was like, wait a minute. I don't remember that happening in the game.
Oh, really? Because I felt like this was one of the more accurate renditions. Yeah.
I mean, there's parts of it, but does he walk through tulips in the game?
No, that's the tiptoe through the tulip line is probably because as he walks, you hear it do when he walks. So it's probably playing on the song by Tiny Tim. I'll be honest, this might be my second favorite song on the album.
I put Bouncy and Fun. That was my comment.
I know Pac-Man was the bigger game, but this song, when I think of a novelty album and novelty songs, this song should have been their first and maybe only single. Because I, as much as I'm saying, I don't think your video game album needs more than 2 singles, but
right.
Yeah, it's a dance with dance steps. I think it gets the video game pretty right. The chorus is catchy. It's got a really 80s keyboard solo in the minute, and it even has that weird fade out. Like it fakes you out at the end where it fades out and it comes back. I think the version we listened to, the record skips there a little, but that's fun. This song, Do the Donkey Kong, as it's telling you, should have been like the 80s staple at school dances and weddings and bar mitzvahs and shit. Cause
you can't really do all the, we'd have to develop the dance moves. Like what is scale up the wall? What is that move?
I think it's, you put your hands in front of you almost like a cat and it's like you're climbing up almost like a ladder.
Okay, and you got to pound upon your chest.
Yeah, like a Donkey Kong
take an elevator
would do.
ride.
Yeah, you put your hands crossed in front of you and you just bend down. Like that old trick where you pretend you're in an elevator.
Tim, here's what I think we need to do before we post this episode. We need to play and record you doing these dance moves.
I don't think I need to do that twice. Thank you.
Like an instructional video. Oh, you've already got it recorded. Great.
I'll put a link in the show notes. You can all see it's from probably about 1998 when I posted it on YouTube's Precursor. Yeah, millions of views. Yeah, this song made me. This song made me who I was, got me into the industry. And I don't think we would be doing the podcast, let alone have a concept called podcasts, if it wasn't for the fourth track off of Buckner and Garcia's 1982 release, Pac-Man Fever.
I really think you should do it.
I really think I did do it.
You did really do it?
No, I don't have that kind of time, nor do I have a camera, nor do I have the space to fully indulge myself in the song Do the Donkey Kong. But outside of those 3 factors, sure, I did it.
Okay.
I love this song. I sing this song. I've been singing this song for years. This song, Do the Donkey Kong, I really enjoy. It's my second favorite song, not my first.
What is Pac-Man Fever your first?
No, we're not a big fan of Pac-Man Fever.
Have we gotten to your favorite yet?
We haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay.
No.
Because the rest of the album, even though I just listened to it yesterday and then again a little bit this morning, I can't even remember what the next, 3 songs? I can't even remember what they sound like.
I feel like 3 albums. You can't remember a 30-minute album. Track 5? You don't remember track 5?
I mean, I remember
HYPERSPACE?
the name, but I couldn't tell you. I remember that it was the captain of the ship was in hyperspace, but I don't know the tune. I can't recall the tune in my head right now.
I think you're confusing it with the track after it, but I'm not sure. This
is that's Defender? I thought Hyperspace.
The captain of the ship lyric, I think, is in Defender. Hyperspace.
That just goes to show you how memorable these last few songs are.
Well, I think I can change that for you. I think I can make you remember Hyperspace, which is based on the 1979 game Asteroids. But it has that lyric, it has shooting my rockets all over the place, kicking the thrust. This is a horny fucking song. This one, I think I fire and shoot and blow them out of the sky is a line. This is a track about getting laid.
And this is why I never understood songs as a kid, because I always took the lyrics at face value.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And today too. I didn't think of that at all. I literally... And maybe that's why I didn't enjoy these songs, because to me, they felt very boring as just describing what would happen in a game.
But what about the music? This has bass. It's like you're walking the street between destinations. They actually say shooting like 4 times, hyperspace all over your face. I don't know. Like, do you know the game Asteroids? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, and when they were singing it, describing the song, that's what I pictured. But then I went and I looked up. I wanted to find what the hyperspace game was, and as you and I discovered, there is no game called hyperspace.
No such game. No.
From the 80s. I think there might be one now.
Possibly based on this sex song in outer space. I don't know. I think this song feels great. I don't know if I was crazy about it as a kid, but it's very catchy. You know, I think it, in a way, Asteroids is the most straightforward game, maybe even more so than Pac-Man. And I feel like in this one, they're like, well, there's not too much we can say about it. So,
oh my God.
You know, fuck it. Make it about fucking.
That's what they did. I just to kind of put myself in the frame of mind of this song, I just Googled the lyrics. And it opens with faster, farther, longer, harder. Yeah. I just want to grow and grow. Holy shit. How did I not catch that this was a sex song?
Wait, that's the lyric? That's the opening lyric to Hyperspace? No, I'm going to look that up. Really?
Oh, wait. That's a different Hyperspace song.
That's by Beck.
Good God.
That's by Beck. Who probably ripped off
Buckner.
Hyperspace and Garcia.
Oh, see.
Oh, Gary Garcia, not Jerry.
Here we go. Asteroids around me, don't know where to run. That's just the game. How is that sex?
Well, that's the first line.
I'm somewhere between the moon and the sun. Is the moon your ass?
Yep.
And what's the sun?
That's probably the ball, so it's somewhere in the middle area there. What's that called? Taint?
Shouldn't it be the suns?
No, it's not. That's...
I'm in command of 3 ships, and there's more on the way. Is this an orgy?
Probably.
All right.
He's a space cadet. He can really play. Is that the next line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Push on the button. I'm back in the race. What is...
Jerked off a little bit to get hard.
Shooting my rockets all over the place. Okay.
I feel like I
get that one. I'm invisible now, but I'll be back again?
With another condom.
Okay. Kicking the thrust because I just got to win.
Yeah.
All right.
Competition amongst your friends, probably.
I rotate my ship and then count to 3. I fire and shoot and blow him out of the sky. Okay. I get it, Tim. Yeah. You got me.
And that's a lot of 80s music, though.
Apparently. I'm going to have to go back. I was going to let my kids listen to this, but not anymore.
Well, they probably can. They don't know the video game. But, I mean, metaphors and songs, I think some of those, most novelty songs, I want to hope, at the end of the day, are about something other than the dumb kookiness of my grandmother was run down by a reindeer. There's something else to it.
What else is in that song?
I don't know. I don't want to talk about the song because that's one of my least favorite songs in the world.
I can't wait for our Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer episode this December.
Can't wait to hear you do an episode by yourself.
Solo.
But no, Hyperspace, it's so catchy and it can exist. That's the thing. It probably can exist as its own thing because you're like, what are these fucking lyrics? But the moment you start thinking about it, that's the weird thing. Hyperspace, more than a lot of these songs, the moment you start thinking about it, maybe it's because it's based on a game with a different title, but like I lose track that it's even about a video game.
Sure.
I can't, most of the songs, they've got the sound effects, but this one might too. But you've got the picture in your head of what's going on. This one, I'm just seeing this astronaut blow his load all over the place, really.
That's all I see now.
Space payload. But it's a theme. You got an outer space theme, which I think a lot of video games had.
I thought, talking about deeper meanings, I thought the only one that in my initial listenings, got a deeper meaning from is the Defender song.
Oh, track 6?
Yeah.
Did you know this as an arcade game?
I remembered a similar game. I didn't look it up. Is there a Defender game?
There is. It's not something I knew. It's considered one of the most difficult arcade games of all time. I think it's a pretty influential, like one of the earliest side-scrolling games. I maybe remember the logo, but it's not a game I knew.
Yeah, like looking at the graphics right now, I recall this being... I didn't play this game, but I recall it looking difficult. But the song, for me, I had discovered... Like, it just sounded deeper because it's the captain of the ship that's singing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he put a lot on his shoulders to defend his space and to help his people and to think about his crew. It built up the drama of the situation.
Yeah.
Because I don't think about the crew of the spaceships in these video games, but that's what this was about.
Right. I mean, prior to Stan Bush's The Touch, this was my Toy Line soundtrack. This was probably my favorite song on the album.
Okay. I
love this song. And again, I didn't know that. I knew the game existed. I didn't know it. It's basically the plot of The Last Starfighter, which came out 2 years after, but I was probably still listening to this when the two crossed. So I think it's like you're saying, it's sincere, it's triumphant.
Yeah.
Makes good use of the sound effects. Actually, the sound effects of the game do sound like instrumentation in the song, I think.
And I think it's like throughout the song, it comes up in different parts, whereas I think a lot of the other songs is just at the beginning.
No, this is a great fucking 80s pop song on its own. It's got a very Simon and Simon like guitar solo in the middle. But no, this, I think this kind of pushes this and maybe one other song pushes the album out of novelty act, if novelty acts are a derogatory thing, which I'm still not sure where I stand on that. This is a great epic. You could put this in a movie. As a kid, I would write a whole movie out of this song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could totally see that. Yeah, you could hear this song out of context of the album and maybe still enjoy it.
I'm going to correct you, which is a rude thing to do, and say we'll enjoy it.
Correct away, Timmy.
I did. I'm sorry. That was rude.
No. It's perfectly fine. In fact, I encourage our listeners to only seek out this song and not hear it grouped in with the other video game songs. And then you tell me if you do enjoy it. Tell us.
Well, that's an interesting experience if one can do it. Listener, you can definitely look up The Defender and be very careful when you type this because you don't want to pull up the wrong artist. It's Jerry Buckner and Gary Garcia. But if you don't want to listen to it as its own thing, which I think, Bob, that's a smart thing to try out. If you haven't heard the album yet, try to listen to that out of context. But then make sure you come back to the context of the album, because otherwise you're going to miss what's basically the Tom Waits hit of this album.
Ooh.
The seventh track is a song called MOUSETRAP, which is a 1981 video game, maze game that I never played. And Bob, prior to the show, we were talking a little bit about this.
Yeah.
You don't know MOUSETRAP, do you?
I didn't think I did.
Okay.
So I had thought of MOUSETRAP simply as that three-dimensional board game with all the little contraptions, Rube Goldberg things that you could put together.
Now, would that fit on a concept album about video games? And that's a question. That's not mockery.
It wouldn't, but it was the last song, and I was sort of exhausted listening to this album, so I didn't really do...
Well, it's not the last song.
I didn't look at... It's not the last song?
No, there's a song after MOUSETRAP.
Oh, that's right. There is one more. It's the last song on this page of notes.
That's really as far as I can listen. Is this?
There's a page 2 here.
Now send the run!
Turn the crank, snap the flank.
Kick the boot and down the chute.
Watch it roll, hit the pole.
In the tub of rubber dub.
Flip the man in the pan.
The trap is set. Now drop the net. Gotcha! Catch a mouse with MOUSETRAP.
The craziest game you've ever seen.
So right as we were talking and getting warmed up, I looked it up real quick, and I do recall this maze game. And the little mouse face that moves around the maze and tries to get the cheese, and never really played it. I probably did, but I don't remember playing it.
I don't remember. This is a game that I don't remember existing.
It's basically Pac-Man.
Okay.
With a mouse, right?
I don't know, because, I mean, first off, I will say as a kid, this was the worst track on the album to me.
Okay.
But, you're saying it's like Pac-Man. As an adult now, listening to it, the song's a little more interesting to me, because it makes the actual game sound epically complicated. Like there's the lyric that I wrote down. Now a mouse can eat some cheese, and a cat can eat a mouse, and a dog could eat a cat if it got caught in the house. And then I think a hawk swoops in and eats the dog.
Yeah, and something about like you can change to a dog.
I don't know. It's an existential nightmare, this song. It's basically the metamorphosis, kind of by way of Tom and Jerry. And because of that, and as an adult because of that, in the line, I'm caught in a mousetrap, what can I do? This is about living in the 80s, the rat race of sort of living in the 80s. Since I don't have, this was my experience with this, since I don't have the video game or even a version of a video game to connect it to, maybe that's why as a kid I was like, this is garbage, but as an adult now, I can only put myself into this. I know I have a fear of mice, but I don't think that's what it's about because a mousetrap is coming to get me. So maybe somewhere in that, it's kind of like the things that I want to use to destroy, that's what fears me, are going to come back and snap on me. And a hawk is going to eat a dog or something. But this caught sort of, like new wave music is sometimes very science fiction-y and it plays off of like technology and we're all robots and automatons.
Yeah.
This, and I think the song that follows it, play into that pretty well.
Well, and one thing that stood out for me, talking about technology, there's a synth line in MOUSETRAP that sounds like Mr. Roboto from Styx.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny you mentioned Styx, because I'm going to mention
like
Styx on the next song.
There's like a in MOUSETRAP, like she's got a secret. There is like whatever Mr. Roboto was. I haven't heard that in a while.
I bet that's all classic Jerry Garcia.
I bet you it is. But you're saying Styx comes up in the last song for you?
Well, yeah, the last track, Goin' Berserk, which is based on the game Berserk from 1980. I was surprised that this game is as old as it is because it's a pretty high-tech game. Did you ever play Berserk or ever see Berserk as a kid?
No, I don't recall Berserk.
Intruder alert, intruder alert. Got the humanoid. Got the intruder.
It's a difficult game, I think, and the song is a masterpiece. I think. I know I was saying the Defender is my favorite, but I think the song starts like a Styx song. It has that piano at the beginning. It's a very sweet, kind of emotional piano. And then they, like they do in all the songs, they incorporate sound effects from the game. So there's like laser beams. There's a robot voice jarringly in your ear. It's the album's ballad. And I think it's phenomenal.
Okay. I'm going to have to trust you.
I really
on
thought
that.
you'd have something to say before I launched into what I was going to say.
I don't know that this album can have a masterpiece.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Think about being a kid in the 80s and think about being a little older than when this came out, because I don't think we were the demographic, but think about being in your teens. Think about this idea of being there in a world of school that tells you what to do and adults that tell you what to do and all sorts of things and wanting to find something, amidst all that chaos. You can want to find a person or a goal or something and you just can't, and you have lyrics in the song like, I can wander through the maze, it's a wonderland at night. I can stop in my lasers when there's a robot in my sight. It's all about rebelling, against like automatons.
I think what I need is to hear it again, maybe out of context. Because by the time I got to this song, and again, just because I'm listening to it at surface level, I'm just hearing lyrics explaining how the games work. Like what
it did feel like that. It was just telling you how the game operated.
Yeah. Okay. And so maybe that's why I'm like, just another walkthrough. I'm going through a maze. It's nighttime and there are things chasing me. I mean, I don't know.
Was it exhausting? It was exhausting. That
it
you
was
went through an
exhausting
entire concept album
to get through all of it. Because again, it's all very similar sounding too. Like, yes, each song had a bit of a different kind of sound to it. You had a power ballad, you had a synth dance party, and I guess this is your Styx song.
The genre of Styx song.
Yeah, but
beloved by both Jerry and Gary Garcia.
But I'm still just hearing just the repetitiveness of now I do this now. So
you are really hearing it as just a play-by-play of the game.
I was, yes.
Mm-hmm. Because that's what I thought I was going to hear. Listening to it for the show, and here's the thing, this isn't an album that I have forgotten about. I've listened to it probably within the past couple years. I actually listened to Do the Donkey Kong regularly.
I don't think you ever put any of these songs on a mixtape for me.
No, I didn't, because so when the 90s was not a time I was listening to this album. The 90s, this would have been a trash, funny maybe, but trash album. I don't even know if I would have found comfort in it, because in the 90s, I didn't have nostalgia for the 80s yet. I liked the things I liked in the 80s, and I had brought them with me. And I felt like I had aged out of stuff, and I wasn't thinking back to, oh, I missed the neon and I missed the whatever. So I didn't have that. I think in recent years, I've listened, I've gone back and sought stuff out, and it's easier to do, by the way. I didn't bring that cassette to college, so I wouldn't have even had access to Pac-Man Fever for a good 15 years or so. But this time, like listening to this album in preparation for the show, like I wanted to do this album for the show because I thought, oh, it'll be a way to talk about video games. We never do that. And I'm surprised that what I wanted to talk about was this album. Like I was all set to think it's like a failed attempt at cashing in on video games, which it is. Not failed, but it does do that.
Right.
But there is so much of 80s like kid angst, and for me it was late 80s, early 90s, but this kid angst and drive in it, which makes sense because video games were like a kid's world. You could go there without your parents. Your parents were probably not going to stand there watching you play the game. You get in there, you meet your friends. At least that's how movies portray it. The 80s were an effort to deal with as a kid with your angst and whatever. And video games were sort of an electrical replication of that. And because I just think that arcades are so, in my mind, they're so romanticized as this element of the 80s that I never went to. But again, it's what I said this at the beginning. It's what I think of when I think of the 1980s, that this album, arcades are visual, but they're also the sounds of the games. And this album, I think, replicates that and replicates the internal emotions, not all of which I was feeling when I listened to this as a kid, because they're emotions for a teenager, not for I guess I was 10 or 11 when I listened to the album. But I think this album's great. I adore this album. I was really surprised by that too. And it's the novelty album, yes, because it's playing up the arcades of the 80s. But I think there's metaphors in that are so prominent and so strong that I will listen to this again.
We should look and see if we can get a hold of Jerry Buckner. Get him on the show.
Well, we can't because he passed away.
I meant Gary Garcia.
No, he passed away. What did you...
Oh, I thought you said one of them was still making music.
Jerry Buckner. I thought you said Gary Buckner, and I misheard it as Gary Garcia because, honestly, I keep thinking of Jerry Garcia.
The one that's alive. It'd be nice to talk to him and see if his intent was as deep as you're stating here, or if he was just quickly trying to watch the game and describe what was happening.
Which would be disappointing to hear to talk to him, but as a listener... And you can't say as a listener as a kid because you weren't a kid. But as a listener now, does that impact how you take the album? Do you need to know that to form an opinion on the album?
A second listen, now that I even have... Because honestly, my first listen was just this week. And it, to me, was just describing moments from the video games in an effort to make an album. Because I'm imagining they wrote Pac-Man Fever... and wanted to kind of make some more money off of that.
I think it came to them in a dream fully formed, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's the thing. You just, it would be nice to know their frame of thought if they were putting that much thought into it. I like that you are getting that much out of it. And I like that people can. And I do that with music now. I get your argument. I totally understand that because I listen to songs and get a meaning out of it, get a feeling out of it. If I hear from the songwriter that, yeah, I just opened up a rhyming dictionary and that's how I came up with that line, which, by the way, I have read. And it takes the power away from the song. So you're right. Maybe we don't need to know what they were thinking and we can just live with how we feel about it.
Is it odd then, and I'm opening this up because I don't have an answer, is it hard to maybe get something out of something that's written about something you're nostalgic for? Meaning, here is a song about something from our childhood. What are you going to find in it other than what's from our childhood? I mean, people sit around and tear American Pie by Don McLean apart saying, well, this is about this and this is about this because he's using metaphors. But at the end of the day, it's a song about someone who liked the music from 8 years before he wrote the song. What we get from that, I don't know what that stutter was. What we pull from that, maybe what we're pulling is actually the nostalgia being talked about. Like American Pie is a nice song. I like the melody. I'm not as attached to the topics in it. But Pac-Man Fever, which I guess is very clearly 1982's version of American Pie and predates We Didn't Start the Fire by 7 years. It wasn't nostalgia yet, but it was an aspect of life in the moment. Songs about that maybe if you're more attached to the stuff being sung about than what's in the song, maybe it can't be anything but gaming instructions for you. Maybe that's the issue.
I think I hear what you're saying there. I think, yeah, hearing it now, to me, it just seems like a way of name dropping or just referencing the game as you sing about it. And I hear that, and I do enjoy it to that extent because there is that. There was a song, it makes me think of a song, and now I can't think of the band. I'm going to have to try and look it up, but there is a song, I think it was called As You Wish, and it's a very catchy song. I like it a lot, and the song basically just references moments and lines of dialogue from The Princess Bride.
Okay.
And I very much enjoy that song. There is, to my knowledge, nothing deeper to that song than just making references to the movie The Princess Bride, but I really like the song.
Now, if you're connected to The Princess Bride, won't it trigger those connections?
It does. I enjoy it for those connections. I enjoy it at that level, and I enjoy it because the melody's really good.
I think that's a concept song. Not a novelty song, but I think that's a concept song.
I'd call it a concept song, yeah.
Maybe Novelty Record was the wrong name for this. Maybe to refer to Pac-Man Fever as a concept album, as an album that takes the experience of the sounds and motions and games of the arcade and finds a way to create the internal monologue you have in that. All the things that are beating through a kid's head from their entire day's existence when they get to the arcade. This is 8 songs, half an hour, that manages to sort of replicate that. And it's not deep. It's not as deep. And it might not just be kids because there is some sex in there with the hyperspace all over your face. But I don't know. I don't know what their intention was in writing it. And I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to I don't even know if it would matter. Because at the end of the day, if they were like, well, we saw that video games were big and it was fun and we wanted to write a fun song, which is a fine thing to say. I think that's how we got Luca, that song Luca. But if you want to write something with meaning and deeper themes, or if you want to get something with meaning and deeper themes, I found it this time.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how much of that was forced. Some of it. But it got me rolling and thinking about it, and it triggered something that made this album at least poke at these feelings.
Sure.
Which I think is great, and I'm glad this album exists.
And I think that's great that this is great for you.
Well, great.
I do.
And you know what's funny? And this will blow your mind because I know I'm praising it. I am not a Grateful Dead fan.
Okay.
But if you, listener, are, you can probably notice that there's no reference to them here. Wait, how do we segue out of this? I fucked it up.
Something usually about, and if you want to hear more about, I don't know.
Oh, if you want to hear more about not hearing about
Yep. That would
Jerry
be it.
Garcia,
That would be it.
namesake of Cherry Garcia, you can check out 20th Century Pop, this very show, on the Not a Holograms webpage, nahpods.com. There you'll find the most recent episode up for streaming. You'll find links to all of our past episodes there. You'll find some show notes with some more information in it. You'll find some links to other shows I do. Apparently, you'll find a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot. I've been enjoying the Not a Hologram page.
Oh, great.
Yeah, looking forward to some upcoming new podcasts from Tim. I'm excited. I'm very excited to see, and I've been listening to your other podcast, the Menage a Pop. That's been a lot of fun. So yeah, I encourage listeners of this podcast to check out the page, nahpods.com.
Well, thanks, sir. Yeah, so do that, listener. You can also, while you're online, if you use Instagram, if you use Twitter, you can follow the show, 20th Century Pop, at 20popcast on both of those platforms. You can also follow me, Tim Blevins, at Subcultist. If you were to follow me, if you wanted to follow me, I would say follow me on Instagram. I don't do much on Twitter anymore, but Instagram at Subcultist. Bob, do you want to plug yourself and maybe something else?
Sure thing. Yeah, you can follow me as well on Twitter at RHCanning. And currently, if you are following me, you can follow along as I rank the songs from Oasis albums. which I guess I like it just as much as these video game songs. But maybe,
wow, I didn't think they were equal. That's great to hear you like Oasis.
I'm in the
much.
lower ranks right now, so I think they're about that level.
So
yeah, we
Hyperspace, not Berserk.
just started this last week. There are, what did I say, 73 songs off of Oasis albums, and I think I posted number 65 recently, so we're counting down to number 1. Feel free to follow along at rhcanning.com. No, not .com. rhcanning at Twitter.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe we'll even get it up on the website. I'll be honest, I have not been following as closely as you just requested, but hopefully I will. Because if there's one thing that Bob's very good at, it's showing up every week and being very kind to me. Every other week, so he's not great at it, good at it. But no, you know music. You are someone who I think, more than I do at least, understands, appreciates, and works music into the life. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how one interprets an entire catalog, everything you just said, as a Twitter feed. Yeah. You didn't need to be that. I could cut that out. You didn't need that.
No,
Sorry.
but I appreciate that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
I know music, and I didn't quite like this album.
You don't like Buckner and Garcia.
But maybe I just need to listen to it 60 more times.
They have a song called "Merry Christmas in the NFL" in the 70s. That was like one of their first hits.
Now I need to hear that, because that just combines everything I love.
And this is they did a version, but not the version on TV, of the theme from WKRP.
Okay,
in
so
Cincinnati.
They didn't write or record that for the show.
No, but apparently, if I'm to believe the internet Wikipedia page, they recovered, I guess it would be a cover of it.
Okay.
And solo, maybe not together, but solo, Gary Garcia, I think wrote Casey Jones.
Okay.
The hockey mask wearing character from Ninja Turtles who did Coke.
Uh-huh.
That's dumb. My God. Was it apparent during the episode that I found it funny that his name, Gary Garcia, was so close to the Grateful Dead frontman Jerry Garcia, without realizing, as you pointed out at the start of the show, that Jerry's right there. It's just the other last name. That's even funnier.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed that.
No, it's okay.
If it was Jerry Garcia and Bill Garcia, or Jerry Buckner and Bill Garcia, that would be funny, right?
I guess.
Isn't Bill Buckner a baseball person?
He is, on the Red Sox, from the Red Sox.
Well, I don't know about that, but so maybe it wouldn't be funny.
There's a lot that could and should be funny, but probably wasn't.
But wasn't funny. So this is an example of what you said. Can you hear that fucking motorcycle that keeps going by?
Yeah, I don't think that's a motorcycle. That's more like a moped.
It's all fucking day and into the night. These kids or this kid. It's up and down the street.
Oh, so that's not even like general traffic, somebody going to the store. That's just somebody
someone who, I guess, doesn't have the bars to turn it, so it can't go down a different street. So it must go forward, and then to their credit, I've never seen it, but bravo, they must just back up.
That sounds like then it's probably one of those mini bikes for a teenager, yeah.
I feel like if I looked at it, it would be so small that their ass would have enveloped it, and it's just somebody who looks like they're slowly walking down the street.
It's got to be the twins, the heavy twins on those tiny bikes.
Now, that was a popular thing. Is that insulting to other people? The heavy twin. I think I know what you're speaking of. I don't know why that's a thing. That's what we know.
That's a thing. Aren't they they were on the cover of the Guinness book one year? I don't know.
For smallest bike in butt? What were they?
Smallest bike, heaviest rider combination, maybe. I don't know.
That's a category.
/ twins.
Oh, /twins. Okay. Well, then that's their Reddit. No, that's okay. No, and again, it's just a book of records. I get it, but that's very particular.
It's very particular. They have to get particular, otherwise you've got no more records to break.
I bet they break a lot of things. Maybe not records, because they can't get their pudgy hands around the slipcase. But I bet they break those bikes. I bet they break a lot of hearts, meaning their own, because they need to stop eating red meat.
Oh, man.
I bet they're dead, right? They're
dead and gone for many a year now.
Dead
yes,
and
I'm
gone.
sure.
I bet you can still see an outline of them in the ground. They don't look like they're completely gone. What is with the fat shaming? I'm sorry.
Wow.
That's not cool. That's not cool.
No, you're just angry at that person's bike.
That I'm picturing now as two people on one bike because of what you said about the Guinness people.
Yeah.
Can you hear it when they drive by? Or
I can, yes.
Yes. Oh, I'm
I
so
hear
sorry.
it rev right along.
Yeah, imagine, I'm going to say, and I don't know which one's more annoying. Imagine either that all day, or imagine it bothering me each time it happens and I have to comment on it. One of those would probably make me very difficult to live with.
Yeah, the second one is my guess. I'm just guessing.
I think I would have liked to have left it up in the air.
Okay. Here I come, Centipede. I'm right behind you.